Smoke clawed at the night sky, turning the stars to ash. Radio screamed over the roar of fire. A two-story house groaned under its own weight, ready to fall. Through the mask, Samantha's breath came fast, too fast. Her gloves trembled against the hose. She was the rookie, the one they said was too small, too weak, too green to last. At the doorway, the others froze, measuring risk against orders. But inside, a man had only seconds left. Samantha's chest tightened, not from fear, but from knowing one truth. Courage isn't waiting for permission. It's stepping forward when no one else will. She tightened her grip on the Halligan bar, pulled one last breath through her mask, and disappeared into the flames. Before we dive in, have you ever had to prove someone wrong? Let me know in the comments. The morning sun streamed through the wide bay doors of Station 12, cutting across rows of gleaming apparatus like stage lights on a silent set. Dust motes floated in the beams, suspended in warm air that smelled faintly of motor oil and old coffee. Samantha Carter stood alone in that golden light, bent over the chrome bumper of Engine 12, polishing until her reflection stared back in fractured pieces. Her turnout coat hung on the hook behind her, too big for her 5'3" frame, like armor borrowed from someone else's war. "Careful, rookie," Logan Hayes called as he passed with steaming mug of coffee. His grin quick, teasing. "That bumper weighs more than you do." The laughter that followed wasn't cruel. It was the easy banter of a crew bounded by risk and ritual, the language of people who trusted their lives to each other. But Samantha felt it anyway. The quick twist low in her stomach. She kept her eyes on the chrome and forced a smile, polishing harder until her rag squeaked against the metal. "Carter!" Captain Monroe's voice cut through the noise from his office doorway. "Host duty for the next drill." The words landed heavily. The hose weighed 60 pounds dry, double that when charged with water. Samantha nodded without looking up. Words didn't matter here. Only actions counted. That night, long after the others had gone home or crawled into bunks, the firehouse belonged to her. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as she dragged hose lines across the bay floor. Again and again, her boots scuffed concrete, the weight biting into her shoulders until her arms shook and her hands cramped. She practiced coupling connections until her knuckles split and bled, until the taste of iron filled her mouth when she bit her lip to keep from crying. Because 12 years ago, Samantha had made herself a promise. The fire had started in the kitchen. She was 12, crouched in her bedroom closet, the smell of burning plastic choking the air. Her father's voice had called her name. Once, twice, then gone. The firefighters who came for her were giants, faceless behind their masks, hero who walked through smoke like it was just another day at work. But they were too late to save him. That night, sitting on the curb wrapped in a scratchy blanket, she swore it would never happen to anyone else. Someday, she whispered into the cold, no one will have to wait for someone to be brave enough. Now, years later, the others at Station 12 didn't know her story. They saw what everyone saw. A woman who looked like she'd blown over in a strong wind, trying to do a job built for people twice her size. They'd nicknamed her Pocket. She laughed when they said it, pretended it was cute, pretended it didn't sting. During drills, she shouldered ladders that made her legs quake. She climbed rooftops so steep they turned her stomach into knots. She studied until the words blurred into nothing. Fire behavior, rescue techniques, structural collapse patterns. None of the textbook mentioned what it felt like to walk into a room knowing everyone was waiting for you to fail. "She's got heart," Monroe had told the crew one evening. But heart doesn't carry unconscious victims down flights of stairs. Samantha heard him through the tin office walls. She didn't argue. Instead, she went back to the bay and started over, dragging the hose until her arms burned because her heart might not carry a victim. But tonight, it would carry her through one more drill. Or so she thought. Because sometimes the fire isn't in the plan. And in less than 24 hours, Samantha Carter would learn exactly what it cost to keep a promise. The alarm tore through the firehouse like a blade, slicing clean through laughter and clinking silverware. 1 second, Station 12 was a symphony of ordinary sounds. Monroe steering chili, Logan tossing cards, Samantha restocking medical bags with quiet precision. Next, the world collapsed into urgency. Structure fire, possible entrapment, 1247 Ashwood Lane. The dispatcher's voice buzzed through static, flat and merciless. Multiple calls, second floor occupant reported. Samantha's chair scraped back hard enough to topple. Her pulse detonated in her ears as her boots hit concrete. Around her, the crew moved like a machine snapping to life. Jackets swung from hooks, gloves snapped tight, helmets clashed against lockers in a chorus of practiced chaos. She moved her arms into the turnout coat, heavy and stiff with the last week's smoke. Her fingers fumbled at the chin strap, gloves clumsy, heart riotous. Outside, the engine roared awake like some great beast summoned from slumber. "Let's ride, Bucket!" Tommy's voice cut through the din, half joke, half battle cry. The nickname still burned, but there was no room for pride now. Samantha vaulted into the jump seat, the scent of diesel and adrenaline wrapping around her as the bay doors yawned wide. The truck lunged into the night, siren wailing, lights flaring off windows that blurred past in streaks of red and blue. Samantha gripped the bar with white-knuckled fists, muscle braced against every hard swerve. Her breath fogged the mask, slung against her chest as she stared into the smear of oncoming dark. Captain Monroe's voice cut through the cab. Two-story colonial, heavy smoke on arrival. Occupant confirmed, adult male, mobility issues. His eyes caught hers in the rear view. "Carter, hydrant. Exterior ops, copy?" The words dropped like stones in her gut. "Copy," she said. Her voice didn't crack, but it wanted to. Exterior ops, not interior, not rescue, not tonight again. The smell reached him first, bitter and metallic, the perfume of annihilation. Then the sight, 1247 Ashwood Lane, engulfed in living flame. The fire wasn't fire anymore, it was a predator, writhing up through shattered windows, painting the night in searing orange. Smoke boiled skyward in greasy columns. Sparks spat into the air like frantic fireflies. The engine braked hard. Momentum pitched Samantha forward, then back, heart slamming against ribs. She spilled from the cab into the world ruled by chaos. Heat blasting her faceplate, radio squawking, boots pounding asphalt. Neighbors stood frozen on sidewalks, faces silvered by flame light, eyes wide with helpless horror. Hayes, Thompson, primary search, first floor. Monroe barked. Wilson, ladder the B-side. "Carter, please." The voice came raw and tearing, full of terror. A woman in pajama pants stumbled from the dark, hair wild, tears scarfing suit tracks down her cheeks. "Frank, he's still in there. Upstairs, back bedroom. He can't run. His leg, please." Samantha's stomach plummeted. Her eyes lifted to the second floor windows. Smoke funneled out like gray serpents. Fire licked the frames, eager and insistent. 10 minutes of unchecked burn time. In an old house like this, an eternity. "Ma'am, step back," Monroe said, steady as stone. "We'll get him out." But Samantha saw it, that flash of math in his eyes. Risk versus reward. Seconds versus survival. How much danger could they stomach for a man already halfway to death? The crew fractured into motion. Logan and Tommy vanished into the front door, their silhouettes swallowed by liquid black. Wilson angled the aerial, still groaning as it telescoped skyward. It shimmered, waves bending light, forcing him to pull back with a curse. Samantha ran for the hydrant, coupling slamming her thigh. Her gloves danced over metal, spinning threads, clamping down tight. Water surged through the line with a deep-bellied thud, hose trembling like a living vein. Her mind worked separately from her hands, snagged on a single image, a closed door upstairs, fire gnawing at its frame, a man behind it breathing smoke instead of air. Then, "Help! Somebody help me!" The voice lashed through the roar, thin but unbroken, real, alive. Samantha's head jerked towards the house. The second floor windows were now molten ice, bleeding sparks. The structure groaned, timbers protesting under torture. She shouted across the yard, "Did you hear that?" Monroe didn't answer, too deep in his radio, barking commands as flames punched through the roof like geysers from hell. "Carter, stay put." Wilson's working the rear, but Wilson was waving his arms, mask tilted back, shouting what Samantha already saw. The back was worse, no way in. "Please, someone." Her breath hitched. The sound pulled her backward, 12 years into a night that smelled just like this. Her father's voice, broken and thick with smoke. "Samantha, baby, stay in the closet. Don't come out till the firemen get you." The closet walls are trembling with heat. The scream of sirens outside. Too far, too late. They'd come. They'd pulled her out, but not him. The flashback snapped like rubber band, leaving her in the present. Gloves slipped, legs buzzing. The hose bucked against her boots like it wanted to run, like it knew she was lying to herself. Monroe's voice cracked across the yard. "Carter, hold that line, don't move." She almost listened. Almost. But then the radio erupted. "Command heavy fire on the stairwell. Conditions deteriorating. We need to pull." And under it, barely a whisper now. The last thread of sound from inside. "Please don't leave me." The world tunneled down to two truths. If she stayed put, Frank would die screaming into smoke. If she went in, she might never come back. Her heart became a war drum. Every beat pounded against the years of proving, the hours of training, the whispers she swallowed whole. Pocket, too small, too weak, not built for this job. But she wasn't small now. She was the fire and fury and the promise she made at 12 years old. No one waits for someone to be brave enough. The flames cracked like breaking bones, a warning shot. The roof sagged, bleeding sparks. The heat clawed at her faceplate. Samantha dropped the hose and ran for the fire. Captain Monroe saw her and swore, "Carter, don't you ever think about it." But she was already pulling her mask over her face, twisting the regulator into place with shaking fingers. "He's in the back bedroom," she shouted, voice muffled by the mask. "Second floor. You're not cleared for interior. The house isn't open." Samantha looked at him then and knew what she'd see before she saw it. Calculation. The math of survival. Risk versus reward. How much danger for how much chance? He was a good man, a smart officer, and he would make the logical call. She couldn't. If she waited, Frank would die, just like her father. "Someone has to try," she said. And before Monroe could answer, she was gone. The side door sagged on its hinges like a broken jaw. Samantha kicked it open and stepped inside, and the world changed. The smoke hit first, hot, greasy, choking. It clawed past her mask, burning her throat, searing her lungs. Her flashlight carved a narrow tunnel through the black, But beyond its beam, there was nothing. No floor, no walls, just the shifting dark. The air shimmered with heat waves. Every breath felt stolen. She dropped to her knees, crawling low where air was marginally cleaner. Her gloves brushed gritty tile. Kitchen, maybe. Hard to tell. The layout meant nothing now. Homes didn't feel like homes when they were dying. Her SCBA alarm chirped once. She had maybe 15 minutes of air if she stayed calm. If. A stairwell loomed ahead, warped and glowing at the edges like something forged in a furnace. She swung the Halligan bar, testing the first step. It held. She shifted her weight onto it. Crack! The sound knifed through the smoke. Not the step. Not yet. Somewhere above. The house was tired. It wanted to fall. Samantha climbed anyway. Halfway up, she froze. Heat rolled down the stairwell in a molten wave, and for a split second she hesitated, one breath from bolting back out into the cool night. Then the voice came again, so faint she thought she'd imagine it. Please. That single word shoved her forward. At the landing, visibility dropped to zero. Her flashlight barely pierced the gloom. She crawled, her helmet bumping along the wall, her ears straining for any sound that wasn't fire. Frank, she yelled, her voice barely carrying over the inferno. Fire department, keep talking to me. Here, it was a whisper, but it was real. The last door on the left. She reached it and laid a gloved hand against the wood, warm, not blistering. She hit it with the Halligan, splintering the frame, and shoved the door open. Frank lay sprawled on the floor, his face gray beneath a mask of soot, his right leg bent at sickening angle, alive but not for long. Samantha dropped beside him, fingers fumbling at her radio. Victim located, rear bedroom, second floor, left side. Need evac now. Static answered nothing else. The signal couldn't cut through the walls of flame. Great, she muttered, looping a rescue strap under Frank's arms. He was dead weight, easily 200 pounds. Her muscles screamed as she heaved him towards the hall. Halfway there, the house decided it had enough. Boom! The floor behind them erupted like a flashover, a firestorm igniting everything combustible at once. Heat clawed at her back like a living thing. The hallway transformed into a tunnel of flame. And then came the sound she dreaded most, a beam giving away. The stairwell vanished in an explosion of sparks and timber, collapsing into the inferno below. Their only way out was gone. Samantha froze, chest heaving inside her mask. Her SCBA alarm chirped again, faster now. 10 minutes of air left, maybe less. She looked back towards the bedroom window, the only thing separating her from open sky. It was too small for a man of Frank's size, too small for her with gear. But it was all they had. Samantha dragged him to the window, every muscle screaming, her heartbeat loud as the firestorm raging behind her. She swung the Halligan once, twice, 3 times, shattering glass into the night. She leaned out, gulping cool air through her mask. Below, chaos, flashing lights, shouting voices, water arsing in silver streams. She saw Captain Monroe staring up, his face a mask of fury and fear. Even as she shouted, the floor beneath her groaned. The house wasn't done yet, and Samantha knew what was coming next. Her body locked, eyes fixed on the jagged void where the stairs used to be. Her radio crackled. Carter status. Captain Monroe's voice carried an edge she'd never ever heard before. She keyed her mic with trembling fingers. Victim located, rear bedroom, second floor. But the stairs are gone, I need options. Static. Then Hayes replied, we can't get close enough with the ladder. The walls are ready to go. You've got to find another way out, fast. Her SCBA alarm beeped, a sharp, insistent chirp that drove a spike of fear straight to her chest. Low air warning. She had maybe 5 minutes before she'd be sucking nothing but poison. Samantha dropped to her knees, pressing her helmeted head against the cool floor for one precious breath of cleaner air. Her flashlight swept the room, sagging dresser, overturned lamp, bedsheets curling from the heat, and Frank, unconscious now, slumped where she dragged him from bed once already. His face was gray beneath the suit, chest rising shallowly. What if I came this far to just die with him? Another beep, time bleeding out like water through capped hands. Her light caught the window, a rectangle of darkness rimmed in the firelight, glass already spider-webbed from the heat. She crawled towards it, yanked herself up, peered outside and felt her stomach pitch. 20 feet down, hard ground waiting like a promise. But then, hope. 10 feet below the sill stretched the porch roof, shingles glowing dully from the fire's heat. Not perfect, not safe, but possible. Behind her, a section of ceiling collapsed with a scream of splintering wood, spraying embers across the bed where Frank had lain seconds before. One ember hissed against her glove. She flinched, cursed, and shielded Frank with her body until the sparks died. The house was coming apart. So was her time. She crawled back to the window. The Halligan bark lunged like salvation. The frame had swollen from the heat, stubborn as stone. Her first strike bounced. The second drove the end deep into the wood. She levered with everything she had, muscle screaming. The frame gave with a sharp crack, and the window blew outward, fresh air blasting into her face mask like a blessing. She leaned out, scanning the porch roof. The support posts wobbled, blackening near their bases. If it held its weight at all, it wouldn't for long. Frank, she crouched beside him, voice firm despite the hammering in her chest. Listen to me. We're getting out of here. You're gonna help me, okay? His eyelids fluttered, a faint nod. She looped her webbing strap under his arms, cinched it tight, and started dragging him towards the window. Every inch felt like a mile. Sweat ran into her eyes, stinging, trapped by the seal of her mask. Her arms quivered. Her breath rasped loudly in her ears. The SCBA alarm was a relentless metronome counting down to 0. His radio crackled again. Carter, the second floor is about to pancake. You've got seconds. Get out now. I'm working on it. She snarled through gritted teeth. Halfway through the window, she froze. Her father's voice came to her, ghosted through 12 years in a wall of fire. He told her to stay in the closet, to wait for the firemen. She had. She'd waited, and no one had come in time. Not again. Never again. With a final roar of effort, Samantha dragged Frank to the window. Every inch felt impossible. His dead weight sagging against her, smoke clawing at her lungs. She heaved with her shoulder, muscle screaming, until his torso cleared the frame. Then gravity seized him. Frank tumbled onto the porch roof with a bone-jarring thud, shingles cracking beneath the impact, but the roof held, for now. No time to breathe. Behind her, the hallway erupted, a wall of fire surging through the doorway, with a sound like a freight train. Heat slammed into her back, curtains ignited, bursting into a storm of sparks that rained across the room. Samantha lunged for the window, for one heart-stopping moment. Her boots slipped on the sill, her body pinching backward towards the inferno. Then she caught herself, shoved hard, and threw her weight forward. The fire roared behind her as she dropped onto the roof, landing in a crouch beside Frank. Smoke curled around them like a living thing, hungry for another breath of air. The porch groaned under their combined weight. A splinter shot past her face. Below, chaos moved in slow motion, strobing lights, shouts, Captain Monroe was in the backyard, head tilted up, eyes locking on hers with raw intensity. His expression wasn't angry now. It was something fiercer, something like awe. "Ladder!" he bellowed. "Get me a ladder to the rear, now!" Wilson appeared, running with a 24-foot extension ladder, like it weighed nothing. He slammed it against the porch roof, just as the house gave a sound Samantha would never forget, the deep, doomed sigh of a structure letting go. The second floor collapsed behind her with a roar, fire vomiting out of shattered windows. Heat punched her in the back as she hooked Frank's arm over the ladder rails. "Easy, big guy," she muttered, guiding his body down rung by rung while firefighters waited below to catch him. When his boots touched earth, relief hit her like a wave, but she didn't have time to feel it. The porch roof shook violently, one support snapping with a gunshot crack. She scrambled to the ladder, boots slipping on melting shingles, and threw herself onto the top rung as the roof finally tore free in a cascade of burning timber. Strong hands grabbed her from below, dragging her down on the last 10 feet. She hit grass on her knees, lungs heaving, every muscle shaking. "Nice work, Carter." She looked up. Monroe stood over her, helmet pushed back, soot streaking his face. 2 words, simple, but they carried everything that had been missing before: respect, belief, acceptance. Behind them, the house folded in on itself, sending a column of sparks into the black sky. Samantha stared at it, feeling the truth settle into her bones. The old Samantha, the one who doubted, who waited for permission, was gone, burned away in the fire. Later, when the fire was nothing but embers, and the night smelled of smoke and wet ash, Samantha stood at the edge of the scene. Frank was already on his way to the hospital, alive, because she hadn't listened to the fear or to anyone else. Her turnout gear was torn, streaked black, and heavy with sweat. The Halligan bar dangled from her grip, slick with soot. Around her, crews moved like ghosts in the glow of dying flames, but their voices barely reached her. She looked at the ruins of the house, a place where every doubt she'd ever carried had burned away. They said the heart doesn't carry victims down the stairs. They were right. It carries you through fire. Samantha exhaled, slow and steady, as the first hint of dawn brushed the sky. For the first time since she walked into Station 12, she didn't feel small. She felt like a firefighter. The hospital waiting room smelled like disinfectant and fear, fluorescent lights humming overhead like tired machinery. Samantha sat hunched in a plastic chair, turn-out coat draped across her lap, still damp from hose spray and streaked with soot. Her hands shook faintly around a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. They said Frank was stable. Surgery for the leg, oxygen for the smoke, but he'd live. He'd go home to the woman who loved him, to the grandkids whose crayon drawings probably covered his refrigerator. Samantha pictured him in that life, in morning sunlight that didn't smell like fire. "Carter?" The voice pulled her back. A woman stood there, gray hair pulled back, eyes swollen from tears. Behind her, 2 children clung to a man's hand like lifelines. "I'm Helen Dawson," the woman said softly, "Frank's wife." Her breath hitched. "They told me you saved him." Samantha started to rise, but Helen was already closing the distance, arms wrapping around her in a hug that carried the weight of a world restored. The older woman smelled of lavender and grief, and her whisper trembled against Samantha's ear. "Thank you for bringing him home." Samantha had no words. She didn't need them. The little girl edged closer, her pigtails crooked, her eyes wide. "Are you really a firefighter?" she asked. Samantha knelt so they were eye level. "I am." The girl studied her like she was something impossible. "But you're not very big." Samantha smiled. The first real one since smoke had swallowed her whole. No, she said, but sometimes the strongest things comes in small packages. Hours later, she sat alone on the bumper of engine 12, watching dawn spread like spilled paint across the sky. The gear on her back felt heavier now, not with weight, but with meaning. Her Halligan bar leaned beside her, blackened with soot. In its reflection, the first light of morning burned soft and cold. Logan found her there, sliding onto the bumper with two steaming cups. Heard you had quite a night. Samantha shrugged. Just did my job. Logan sipped his coffee, then said quietly, "You know what Monroe told me once? He said being a firefighter isn't about size or strength. It's about showing up when showing up is hard." He gave her a look, not teasing, not testing, just seeing her, maybe for the first time. "Tonight, Carter, you showed up." Back inside, the station was waking up. Wilson dropped off real coffee. Tommy brought donuts from Fifth Street. Even Captain Monroe passed by, pausing long enough to nod, a small gesture but heavy as metal. Later, at her locker, Samantha traced a tear in her turnout sleeve. Smoke-stained fabric, battle scars, proof. She thought about her father, about the night fire took everything and the promise she made in the ashes. Would he be proud? Would he understand? Her radio crackled. Another call. Another family counting on someone to come through. Samantha pulled on her coat, the fabric stiff with soot, grabbed her helmet, walked toward Engine 12, not as the rookie they expected to fail, but as a firefighter who had found her fire. As the truck rolled into sunlight, she glanced at the sky. Smoke already curling faintly on the horizon. Another blaze, another test, another chance to step forward when every instinct said step back. Because courage isn't size, courage isn't weight. Courage is the quiet choice to move towards the heat when someone needs you the most. And tonight proved something the world too often forgets. Sometimes the smallest flames burn brightest. Everyday heroes are all around us.